How does light shape emotion? Stay with me until the end. Hey everyone, welcome back to DeepBlendArt. I'm thrilled to have you all here for another exciting episode of our lighting series in Blender. Today we're diving deep into the art of lighting and how it shapes emotions in your 3D scenes. So grab your coffee, fire up Blender, and let's get started. In this session, we're not focusing on specific lighting styles or setups like Rembrandt, Butterfly, or chiaroscuro, which we've already covered. Instead, we're going deeper to understand how lighting creates different emotional impacts in our 3D work, regardless of style. We'll explore the key parameters that make a scene feel dramatic, romantic, friendly, angry, or even anxiety-inducing. Lighting is emotion. It's what breathes life into our scenes. We'll break down these parameters, examine their effects, and then put them into practice with some examples. Knowing these fundamentals lets you break free from traditional styles, mix in your creativity, and craft unique lighting setups that evoke exactly the emotions you want. Let's dive into our first topic, contrast. Let's talk about contrast, or the interplay of light and shadow, which is the backbone of lighting. There are two critical aspects here. First is the contrast ratio, or the degree of contrast. Imagine a scene where one side is completely black and the other is fully lit. That's your contrast range from 0 to 100. The higher the contrast ratio, the more dramatic and cinematic your scene feels. High contrast creates bold, intense emotions. If you lower the contrast by adding something like a fill light, you soften the scene, making it feel more balanced, gentle, or even friendly. For example, adding a fill light reduces the contrast ratio, toning down the drama and giving a softer, more approachable vibe. The second key aspect is the extent of contrast. How much of your scene is affected by the contrast? For instance, if you adjust the lighting to increase the area of high contrast, the scene becomes more dramatic. Think of a wide, high contrast spread across the frame. It screams intensity. On the other hand, reducing the extent of contrast creates a softer, more delicate look. So, to recap, the contrast ratio controls the intensity, and the extent of contrast defines how much of your scene carries that intensity. Both are crucial for setting the emotional tone. Next up is light direction, which plays a massive role in defining your scene's mood. In Blender, we typically work with 6 main light directions: top, bottom, side, 45-degree angles, back, and front. Let's break them down. Top lighting, especially when it's harsh and direct, creates an unsettling, almost eerie vibe. Think horror movie villains or serial killers. Bottom lighting is even more unconventional, amplifying anxiety or terror, perfect for zombies or creepy characters. These directions are considered unusual because even natural light, like sunlight, rarely hits directly from above or below. Now, if you tilt the light to a 30 to 45-degree angle, you're in classic lighting territory, like Rembrandt or loop lighting. This angle is balanced and versatile, used in cinema for everything from natural-looking portraits to dramatic detective or boxer shots. It's the sweet spot for most cinematic setups. If you push the light further to a 90-degree side angle, you get the most intense dramatic effect. Think split lighting for maximum emotional impact. This is where you can make a character feel powerful or menacing. Backlighting is another powerful tool. When you place a light behind your subject, like an area light, it creates a mysterious, almost ethereal vibe. Think of silhouetting a saint, a superhero like Batman, or a cryptic figure like an exorcist. It's perfect for introducing characters with an air of mystery. On the flip side, front lighting is flat and unnatural, rarely used unless you're going for a specific artificial point of view effect. So, from top to side to back, each direction shapes a unique emotional narrative. Another critical parameter is light hardness, or how sharp or soft the shadows are. In Blender, this is controlled by the light's angle or radius. A smaller angle, like a spotlight, creates sharp, defined shadow edges, giving a dramatic, classical, or even aggressive feel. A larger angle softens the shadows, making the scene feel smoother, gentler, and more natural. For example, if you increase the radius of an area light, the shadows blend more, creating a softer, more approachable look. Hard light with tight shadows amps up the intensity, while soft light dials it down for a calm, balanced vibe. Distance is another factor that ties into contrast. In Blender, the closer a light is to your subject, the higher the contrast ratio, but the smaller the contrast extent. Move the light farther away and the contrast ratio softens, but the extent of contrast increases due to the inverse square law. For example, if you place an area light close to your subject at 100 units intensity, you get a sharp focused effect. Push it back and the light spreads, softening the contrast but covering more of the scene. This balance between distance, contrast ratio, and extent lets you fine-tune the emotional weight of your lighting. Color is huge in setting the mood. Warmer tones, yellow to red, especially around orange, lean toward classical, grounded vibes like westerns or vintage films. Cooler tones, purple, pink, or blue, feel modern, sleek, or even futuristic. Neutral whites or grays sit in the middle, offering a balanced, timeless feel. By tweaking the hue and saturation in Blender, you can push your scene toward a specific emotional palette, whether it's nostalgic warmth or cutting-edge cool. Alright, let's put all this into practice without relying on traditional lighting styles. I've got a character ready in Blender. No lights in the scene yet. First, let's create a modern sci-fi hacker vibe with a couple of lights. I'll add an area light and set it up for split lighting to get that high contrast, mysterious look. I'll crank up the intensity to make it bold and shift the color to a cool blue for that futuristic feel. Now, let's add another area light behind the character, bump up its intensity, and keep it in the cool color range. This creates a sleek, stylized look. If I add some glow textures or adjust the shadow play, it enhances the modern high-tech aesthetic even more. Now, let's switch gears and make this same character feel like a classic noir detective or old-school sheriff. I'll add a sunlight tilted about 45 degrees on the y-axis and a bit on the z-axis and shift the color to a warm yellow-orange for that vintage vibe. Increasing the intensity makes it pop. If I want to soften it slightly, I can add a fill light with an area light to balance the contrast, giving it that timeless cinematic look. For a romantic or soft vibe, we need to dial down the contrast and adjust the angles. I'll lower the intensity of the main light and tweak its angle for a gentler effect. Then, I'll add a strong area light behind the character, say 1000 to 3000 units, and push the color toward warmer, positive tones. This softens the character, making them feel approachable and romantic, perfect for a heartfelt scene. Finally, to create an anxious or terrifying vibe, like a serial killer or monster, I'll light the character fully from above to cast harsh shadows, giving that menacing, bully-like feel. To push it further, I can add unconventional colors like eerie greens or purples to amplify the unsettling mood. If I add another area light, tilt it slightly and keep the intensity low, say 30 to 50 units, with a less conventional color, it fills in the shadows in a way that feels chaotic and intense. Flipping the light to the bottom creates an even creepier, zombie-like effect, especially if paired with a grotesque character design. We've covered the core parameters that shape emotions in lighting. These are the building blocks you can use to craft any mood in Blender, from dramatic to romantic to terrifying. I hope this gives you a clear roadmap to experiment with your own lighting setups and bring your creative vision to life. That's a wrap for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed diving into the emotional side of lighting in Blender. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to DeepBlendArt for more. I'm planning to explore scene lighting next. Think interiors, exteriors, and environments. If you're excited for that, let me know in the comments so I can gauge the interest. Thanks for watching, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.